All right, good morning, guys, to everybody that's going to be popping in here. The date is October 30th, 2022. I literally rolled out of bed, made a cup of coffee, stepped outside to enjoy the fine weather, and came straight down here and was like, let's do this, right? Because I bought some comics yesterday. I had a fantastic time. Rainy rainy Sunday show was basically based on when I was a kid, and on those Sundays that I was out of school, it was the weekend, and it was too rainy to go outside and play. I would get a stack of comic books, crawl up on the bed, and listen to the rain hitting the roof as I read some comic books. Late 70s, early 80s are the biggest memories, right? So yesterday and the day before and stuff, right? The holiday weekend is in full swing. So at work, we had clients. I'm a social worker. We gave out candy. Had the It felt like the traditional trick or treat and not the trunk and treat that's going around that I find sort of lame and feel sorry for kids. But you can't miss what you don't know, I guess. Being able to travel around the neighborhood and go up to houses and see their decorations and see the costumes if they have any. People giving out candy. Instead, you just walk up to a line of cars and they have their trunks open. So yeah, whatever, man. Right. And then yesterday there was several conventions going on. No Baltimore Con this year. No big deal. Not a biggie. I have plenty of friends that are up there, which surprised me. Definitely check out Charlton 66 whenever he puts up his big haul. Big shout out to him up there. But around here we had several things going on. We had the Tri Counties Comic Book Convention. Now, last weekend, and I didn't bring the books, amazingly enough, right? But last weekend, there was actually a comic book convention in my town, and it was given through the Tazewell Library. And they've done this for several years, so I ended up popping up in there for a little bit. And surprisingly enough, nobody was selling comics, but they did have a table where somebody had donated a bunch of Marvel trades. So there was a few of those. Nothing really worth showing off there, but it really surprised me because probably a week or two before that, I went to Boone, North Carolina, and they had a comic book convention there in a local mall. And a lot of people showed up, and it was the same thing as this Tazza library, a bunch of people with crafts and making swords and wands and everything like that. Nothing wrong with that, but it's a craft show, a pop culture craft show. And there was one person I knew who had about 5 short boxes of comics, and that was it. So to go to the Tri County comic book convention in Bristol, uh, the person who this was the second show, and I know the person who runs these shows. He does several comic book conventions across the state, and this one was probably last year was phenomenal. It was just packed with people selling comics, dollar comics, collectible comics, people from comic book shops setting up. This year, I think they had maybe less than half of what they did, but still was a good show. And at the same time, Mountain Empire Comic Books in Bristol, Virginia, was celebrating their 38th year open. And basically, what he was having was a 30% off everything in the store. And if you bought 30 new comics that were on the new comic rack in the last 2 or 3 months, you would get them for $1 a piece, but you had to buy over 30, and then they dropped to $1 and stuff, right? So got some phenomenal stuff there also. But the biggest thing that really happened is that I met got a new buddy, I guess, and met him in Withville while we were looking at comic books in this antique shop and stuff. He was able to come down and hang out with us for a little bit. But the biggest thing is if you guys have watched this channel, you've heard me say many, many times that I would get with my brother. He lived with his grandmother. He would come down on the weekends with us. And one of the first things I would do is because he lived way back in the mountains. I would take him, walk him around town to let him get some comic books. I would get a stack. He would get a stack. We didn't get doubles. Then we'd pile up in my room. I'd be in my bed. He'd be on a beanbag that was in there. And we would sit there, be reading comics and trading back and forth and stuff, right? So we got to read more comics with our limited funds that way. So we rarely bought doubles. And he was 4 years younger than me, still is. But it amazed me how he had his finger on the pulse of the new books that are going to be hot. He was on the Rob Liefeld and Cable, the first appearance of Cable and things like that. and other books like that way before anybody else in the area. You know what I mean? He was like just right on top of it. That youth. You know what I'm saying? Um, so, he was the market. I was already a grizzled old comic book collector. At 16, 17, I was already done for. But for the first time in decades, and the first time in years, we actually hung out. He came out, and it was his birthday weekend. Let's put it that way. And the whole thing was, we're going to take him out to a nice restaurant to eat for lunch. And I tell you what, man, there was something magical happened there, where I was with my brother and we were back in our own little world, synced in, buying comics together. I did not realize that was something I missed with the comic book collecting, was sitting there talking about comics and looking through them with my brother. Now, not only did we do the Tri-County Comic Con, but I saw him buy a few things that I got there before him and I'd already put back and didn't get. And he ended up getting them. Like, we're in sync. Then as we went down to the sale at Mountain Empire, had a great time there, went out to eat. And then he did something that I was like, I raised this boy right at some point. So because he ended up showing me one of his honey pots where somebody sells comic books in the town of Bristol. And I've drove by the place several times and never even knew it existed, and ended up spending a little bit of money there. So kudos to him. I was like, there you go. Right. So, anyway, just a great time hanging out. And, like I said, something about talking comics and looking through comics and hanging out with my brother was just amazing. I'm not going to be able to describe it. Either get it or you don't. So hopefully maybe in the future we'll be able to, with life, we're both old now. Maybe somewhere down the line we'll be able to do this a little bit more. We shared stories, a few little stories here and there about how his Amazing Spider-Man number 300. He lived with his grandmother. I have my stepdad is his father, but he ended up living with his grandmother, step grandmother for me. And she is the one that took the stepdad's collection when he ended up going to the Navy in the early 70s. She didn't just throw away parts of his comic book collection, the Silver Age stuff, Fantastic Four, and all this stuff like that from the 60s and everything. But she ended up giving it to some of his friends. So when he came back from the Navy, he would go visit his friends, and they would whip out his comics in front of him and sell them. So I was asking him about his comic book collection. What did he get? Was he able to keep? What does he still have and everything? Because I sold him quite a few books there at some point also back in the 90s, just to help him out with the collections he was trying to put together. But his grandmother, his father's dad, who threw out the books in the 70s, also did a big purge of his comic books. She was cleaning his room or something when he was a kid. And she reached over there and she found his Spider-Man 300 and wadded it up with a couple other comics and threw it in the trash right in front of him. I was devastated to hear that. Spider-Man 300, for you muggles out there, is the first appearance of Venom, Todd McFarlane, 1988. So I felt kind of bad. So because he's lucky to have his comic book collection survive at all. Okay. So now on to the comic books, if you will, right? I've given time people to see if they're up early this Sunday morning. It is early also. Can't believe I'm doing the show this early. But anyway, the Tri-County Comic Book Collection Convention, I'm trying to really limit certain things that I'm getting. I'm really trying to focus on completing certain runs, just finding certain books. So that's where we're at. The state of the new comics and stuff like that. I honestly know very few people even getting new comics, but the back issue market is huge right now. All right. At least around here and in my circles. Right. One of the things that I always figured I would end up finding at a dollar bin or end up finding on eBay for cheap and stuff. And I was so wrong, and I deserve to be wrong. Several years ago, Archie was having a lot of crossovers over the years, Archie Comics. And I think it's really spectacular what they were doing, how they moved forward, how they've survived. Archie Comics as a company is really underappreciated, in my opinion, considering how long they've stayed, the things they did with sales. They've had Saturday morning cartoons made of their products and stuff. But then they started doing this thing where they were having crossovers with like Kiss, B-52s. Years ago, they did Punisher. Things you wouldn't think would work. They ended up being very cool, right? Well, one of the things they did is they had Archie meet the Ramones. And there were several covers for this, and I've gone with this cover. I'm a huge Ramones nut. The Ramones is as cliched and as silly as it sounds through life. The Ramones music actually got me through some very hard times, got me through some very long road trips. And I really miss the days where I could listen to the songs and I spent a lot of the time trying to figure out what the hell Joey was saying while he was singing. And now I understand him perfectly. He really was ahead of its time. But yeah, I missed out on this, so I was actually glad to find it. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I didn't haggle. I was so happy to see it. He had 3 or 4 covers with this vendor, and I just went ahead and just paid $10 for it to have it because it's just fantastic, and I've been looking for it for years. And sometimes you deserve to just pay what it is for your dumb assness of missing out, thinking you could just wait on certain books. So I still have a lot of success finding books that end up in dollar bins and stuff, so it's no biggie. So as I walked around, there was not a lot I really wanted or needed, and some of these books have popped for whatever reason. Hopefully, they're organically, not because of people watching speculator videos and things like that. But I felt really good about my collection. I saw quite a few books on the walls, if you will. There was one guy at the convention who he was just doing key books on the back wall, and he had boxes of graded comics and stuff, and they were like on sale for $99 and things like that. So people are I've got a feeling things are definitely changing with how books are going to be sold at conventions in the future. I'm hoping that's not a harbinger of things to come, if you will. All right. So I walked around and I felt really good about my collection. They had some books that I felt were a little bit more common than they wanted to say, going for big bucks. And I saw some people actually buying them. There was some interest and stuff, right? So good, good. You know, I've got some books in my collection that are worth some money. That's great. And of course, as I was flipping through and walking around, I found a guy that had a box of 50-cent comics. And it really cracked me up because what he had done in pen is that he had wrote 50-cent comics, 10 comics for $5. What you don't realize is when you were seeing the box is a lot of people will read those signs and you think you're getting a deal. They'll be like, basically it would be like, these are dollar boxes, but if you buy 12 books, you get them for 10. If you get 15, you get for 12. They give you a deal. People were actually looking at that and not doing the math and thought that they were getting a deal instead of they were still paying the full price for the 50-cent books. I hope you can follow that because I got a kick out of watching people being like, oh, that's a good deal. You know, I actually saw it. One box, you know. So the 50-cent books, I recently have completed getting all 31 issues of the Kamiko Johnny Quest series, which is fantastic. Around the first year, they really had some great superstars coming in and doing covers for Johnny Quest. They were getting Steve Rude, Dave Stevens, Bill Sienkiewicz. This is a Wendy Penny of ElfQuest fan cover with Steve Rude doing inks, and it is a wraparound cover. That's the great thing about Kamiko. I will pick up Johnny Quest all day long if it's like 50 cents a quarter, despite having a full set now and a full run. Now, this will break your heart. This is going to break your heart. But I got this so I could have a reader's copy, and it was there. I was like, why not? So as I flipping through there, and he actually had 2 key books in this 50-cent bin. Now, remember, it's a 50-cent bin. These books are beat up and tore up. So I kind of cracked up because it's a newsstand edition of X-Men 244 that seems every few years just to kind of pop because it's the first appearance of Jubilee. It's usually when they announce a cartoon or a movie or something, and all of a sudden this becomes like another must-have key and stuff, right? So I was like, 50 cents, it's beat up and everything like that. And I didn't inspect the back of it. Now I'm fine because I have one. I actually bought this off the rack back in the day, and I sold something like an 80-issue run of X-Men back in like 93 or 94 or something that I had, right? I've been able to accumulate most of those books that I wanted back and stuff. No big deal. Can't believe that was 29 years ago, right? So yeah, but look at this. How does this happen? The cover and the last page are ripped. I don't know how the things like this happen, but I always come up with this horrible story in my head of how somebody's just devastated because a freak accident happened or something, or it was mishandled, or somebody tried to grab their comic from them. I always think of something really bad, right? But anyway, I have a little reader's copy there. That shouldn't be in the stack. Don't want you to see that yet. All right. And then I'm having this era here, this moment where I'm really being more forgiving of books from the 90s. I've never really held a grudge, if that makes any sense. I've always said cream rise to the top. I've always said there have been great series that were going on during the 90s. But for you people who were not there in the 90s, you reached a point of time where everybody was getting into the comic book biz, basically mainly because of Image Comics, and everybody, you had all these companies popping up. Even Topps Comics were making comic books. These people who did trading cards for years, and sports cards and movie cards and stuff for years, right? But there's certain series that I'm picking up now, and I find them on the cheap that I kind of hate that I missed out on, because they're actually pretty good. They're fine, you know. Maybe it's where the bar over the last 8 years, 9 years, some people go back to 2010, has lowered on what they expect from writers and comics and stuff, that a lot of this stuff going back is brilliant compared to that. My big comment that I made several times that actually got a few people chuckling or laughing or thinking that was interesting was me saying that today's comics make the new universe of the late 80s look like Shakespeare almost, you know. But anyway, this is neither here nor there, but I've actually ended up getting quite a collection of the X-Files Topps comics. I'll show some more later. But these were in the 50-cent bin. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. They just need some new bags and stuff, right? But these are not bad. Now, they're not great, but they're not bad. If you're, it's a great effort to translate the X-Files show into comics. I've read a handful of them now, and I'm in. Now, if you get on your key comic apps, or you start trying to dig around and find the first appearance of X-Files in comics, I'll probably dig it out at some point. It's probably in this room, but they'll list X-Files #1 from Topps Comics as the first appearance of X-Files in comics. That's not correct. Believe it or not, it is in an issue of TV Guide. It has a comic book insert of the first X-Files in comics story. So that's why I kind of chuckle at speculation and just why I sort of chuckle at certain things, because like if you weren't there, you wouldn't know. That TV Guide was actually advertised as having X-Files in it. It wasn't like an event or a phenomenon, but yeah, they stuck the first, and it's a sci-fi special issue of TV Guide where they had more articles and stuff in the 90s. I have it. I bought it off the rack. It is beat up, and I'm fine with it. And I'm thinking it's a yellow cover with characters from Star Trek Voyager on it. Okay, so just give you a heads up there, right? If you're interested in it. But these are actually really fine comics. Let's put it that way. These are satisfying. And other companies have picked up X-Files, you know, throughout the times and stuff, right? But yeah, not a bad series. Not bad. Like I said, not Shakespeare. Issue 37. I think this ran into the 40s. This book hung on for probably about 3.5 to almost 4 years, which is fantastic. Hey, good morning, guys. All kinds of people here, right? This particular issue, again, these are 50 cents. Marvel Fanfare, number 15, right? This book should have a little bit of a cult following, because Marvel Fanfare, as I understood back in the day, you know, came out direct market only and stuff, and it would have some great creators on it. It would have different stories about different characters on it, if you will. It didn't really have a theme. They had issues where people experimented with storytelling. John Byrne did an all splash page issue, where every issue was a splash page story of Hulk, that I think actually tied in with what he was trying to do there at some point when he was on the book for a few months. But anyway, this one is by Barry Windsor Smith. Barry Windsor Smith wrote, draw, and ink this one, and it's a very funny tale about Johnny Storm and the Thing, if you will. And it's infamous because Ben Grimm wakes up from a nap thinking that he started growing facial hair. This cracked everybody up when this was out. And it turns out it's just Johnny Storm. He had glued pieces of straw on his face while Ben was sleeping. It's an Johnny Storm, just some mysterious prankster is just coming at the Thing left and right as soon as he woke up and stuff, right? I already have this, but again, one of those books I will buy all day long, especially if I'm finding it in a 50-cent bin. What this was doing in a 50-cent bin, I have no idea. But Marvel Fanfare was a fun book. Okay, so basically, Al Milgrom was editor. I think Archie Goodwin came over at some point and stuff, but they would talk to you with little strips and have little intros inside the cover to tell you what's going on with the issue and where they found this stuff. Basically, what I found is that it was a bunch of stuff laying on in people's desks that were unused art, unused story. They're like, well, let's stick it somewhere. So they made it Marvel Fanfare. Just to get real quick, I have no idea what's going on with me, but I don't know. A year or two ago, I just picked up some adventure comics with some Dial H for Hero in it. There's a hero, the Dial H for Hero concept has been revamped and had horror aspects added to it, Vertigo-esque horror aspects, put to it, real life situations about explaining it. DC 52 back in the day brought back the hero dial. But for some reason, I'm kind of hooked on reading these little stories. And I know what happened. I think it was Harlan Ellison, if I remember right. But basically, the concept of Dial H for Hero is they have a form in these where you create a hero, you sign it off saying that it's completely owned by DC and it'll never be, you'll never get, compensated for it. And, our heroes, Robbie there, who has the dial, will spin it and they'll turn into a different hero that was created by you. And Harlan Ellison actually submitted one, which was hilarious, right? It ran in Adventure Comics there, like I said, and this is a concept from the 60s and stuff, but I'm hooked. I don't know why. It's just fun. It's just kind of fun. It's cool to see what these little kids create. It was mostly kids and a few adults and stuff like that because they give credit within them of who created what. So I'm ended up getting quite the run of Adventure Comics Style H for Hero. Sometimes comics just need to be fun, I guess. That's awesome. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. Of course, John C. was here. I'll get to you. Let's back up, say hello to some people. We got some comments. Gratu was there. What's up, brother? John C. Guys, you got to be like John C. He has hit that bell below where he is subscribed to know when these things are happening because I'm kind of sporadic. Gray Man from across the pond is here. The legendary Gore Vidal from Texas is here. Good morning. And then we go up to Canada. We are worldwide today, guys. Everywhere. Comic Crack is here. What's up? Good morning, sir. And he has a comment about Marvel Fanfare down here. Okay, Marvel Fanfare, number 41, Dave Gibbons, Doctor Strange. It's amazing. Have it, love it. Yep. Gray Man is a Dial H for Hero fan. Fantastic. What do we got here? Vicky Grant and Chris King in the town of Fairfax. Gotcha. Good stuff here, right? Now, I got this one just to have it. I saw this on, there was a lot of great stuff happening in comics. And I want to say it felt like mostly DC, right? So with my $5 allowance, comic books jumping up to 75 cents there for a while, probably for about a year or something. I could be wrong by memory and stuff, right? And stuff like that. I had to pick and choose. Right? And change was something that sort of made me roll my eyes every now and then because there's a lot of change going on because of prices. Legends was coming. You didn't really realize there was a bit of a direction going on at DC where things were changing. So there's a lot of stuff, right? So they took so I didn't really appreciate them taking the spotlight, what it felt like, off of Hal Jordan, even though I like Tales of the Green Lantern Corps one shots and those backup series and Green Lantern and stuff that they would have about other lanterns and stuff. I mean, I was all for that, but what I wasn't for was changing the title, which they do left and right for a decade and a half now, right? Things to come, right? And I was wrong at the time because I ended up picking up the book later again and followed it to the end. The book would be canceled within 2 years, or right at 2 years after this book, right? So here's a beat up, waterlogged, soggy key book, first appearance of Kilowog, where the book changed to the Green Lantern Corps after Crisis. So 2-1, and it's beat up. It's just for me to have it. Eventually, I'll get an upgrade and stuff, right? But I saw it on the rack. I remember buying some other stuff, and silly me, passed it up. Okay, what we got here? Eric Breen is here. Good morning. Will Ramos is here. Issue of the U.S. edition of TV Guide, Volume 43, number 28, issue 2207, pages 22 to 26. Neelix from Star Trek Voyager on the cover. Will Ramos is here to let you know that this is the TV Guide. Oh, wait, he's got another comment up here. Good morning. The X-Files TV Guide mini comic, June 15th, 1995 notes. Topps was commissioned to write the mini comic for a summer science fiction issue of the U.S. edition. They connect, guys, of that. I have that, and I got a kick out of it. Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Ramus. And of course, I have to throw it out there. Cavern of Chaos, Friday night TV show, started here in the channel during the pandemic. And then when things got normal, I just did not have time. And Jared has carried it over to his channel. And Will Ramus is one of the top commentaries on that show every now and then. And for anybody that's just watching my channel, I pop up there sporadically about once a month or once every 2 months if I'm home and have time, or they suck me in with such great conversation. Go back and watch the Cavern of Chaos, dated 10/29 on Jared Osborne's channel. Towards the end of it, there's this fantastic tour of a toy room. Let's put it that way, full of action figures. Good morning, guys. Eric Breen. I would plug Breen, but all you have to do is pick almost any comic book channel and he will pop up on there. So check out his channel directly. He's got a house tour that is just amazing of his comic book collection. It was one of the, I've seen many tours of comic book collections, comic book rooms, comic book houses and stuff like that. And his was just fascinating. One of the top, probably the top two in the top two, to be honest with you. Definitely. William Byrd, from what I've read, Marvel fanfare is mostly unused inventory stories meant to be fill-ins during times when books couldn't be late due to being considered periodicals. Fantastic. That's what I suspected. And I got a feeling this was a bit more common knowledge for people who had access to the direct market. But it's long forgotten lore now with how long some of us have been collecting and stuff like that. So it's always a good reminder. We're going to get to these 50-cent books, and I got some better stuff coming up. But Alien Worlds, again, started getting a real appreciation for alternative comics of the 80s, and that's what they were called. I actually posted, I think it was on Instagram. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I don't really blow up your feed, but every now and then I'll be reading like some comic scene, some amazing heroes or something, and if they have a top 100, they actually had a section at the bottom, top 100 comics of the month, and they actually had a section in the corner of top 5 alternative comics, right? And they started being called indie in the 90s. What's the word I'm looking for here? Popularly, whatever. But anyway, a lot of the PC Comics, First Comics, all these little companies, Kitchen Sink and things like that, had some fantastic talent on them. So here's a one-shot where they adapted a story out of Alien Worlds, where it is 3D. And this is such a throwback. I have a book of pinup art from the 30s up until about the 60s and 70s. If you know what pinup art is, those were the calendar girls that would be, you go to a garage in the 50s and they'd have the calendar that they flipped up and it had a picture of a girl in lingerie painted and stuff like that. Maybe a dog pulling her panties down. You see the crack of her butt, very, things like that. But there's actually a tattoo I'm thinking to get from the 30s that looks a lot like this. It's on my phone. But anyway, I'm finding these 3D books left and right. There's a Three Stooges 3D book for $2 I'm going to end up getting. I've passed up 4 or 5 times. Got this next issue completely, totally for the cover. Paul Gulacy has done a piece of art here, and I can't believe this is from 1977. So I missed out on this with my age by a year, if that makes any sense. Now, we had Shang-Chi comics in the house, and amazingly enough, I just dug the covers, and it turns out a lot of those covers are by Paul Gulacy and I think Mike Zeck and stuff, right? Before I even know who the names were, right? But when it came to Shang-Chi comics when I was a kid, I was more into Dr. J, selling selling the tennis shoes and stuff, things like this. Funnily enough, and I love doing this. For you guys that are popping on, I have admitted I rolled directly out of bed, got a cup of coffee, looked outside, and went ahead to do this haul, right? But anyway, I'm pretty sure this is one of those EC Mad Comics artists doing these things. These advertisements back then. I was a huge Dr. J fan when I was a kid. Muhammad Ali, Dr. J, Evel Knievel, Fonzie, and then somehow Mort got in there. I based my whole life around those people. Anyway, but this I could not pass this up for 50 cents. This fantastic, beautiful cover by Paul Gulacy. Sometimes these covers where they have lots of black, but it's just enough to where it gives the character weight and the dynamics of it and the power. Just every now and then this grabs me. This is Kirby worthy in my, Kirby worthy in my opinion. Just a fantastic cover. And now we're going to have a little fun. And Breen, I know you're out there, so these will probably pop up the next time I'm on the Fossil show. So we won't do spoilers, but 50 cents a piece. I found some books I read as a kid in these little 3-packs of Whitman comics that came out. There's no Super Goofy, no Beagle Boys, but good enough, right? And these were from 71. A lot of these books I'm about to show you are from 71 to 77 that were 50 cents a piece, right? Underdog. I remember having this book, but I swore I thought it had a yellow cover. Now I'm going back to 1977, 78 with memory. So it means nothing. It means nothing, Hot Stuff. In the pre-Hellboy days of comics, this was my demon. Hot Stuff. Just to dig him. Then I'm always happy to find this early 70s Charlton stuff. It's taken several people over the years to get me into Charlton comics, especially horror books. And the biggest one has been Charlton 66, right? Flintstone and Pebbles from 1971. Ghost Manor. I love these painted covers that Charlton would have. And it's not going to translate well because they're very dark. Just great stuff. Spoof comics. I think this just ran for 5 issues. A Marvel Comics spoof comics for 50 cents. Why not? There's Meathead, Rob Reiner, who promised he'd leave Twitter if Elon Musk bought it, and his dumbass is still there. And then I think this is a nice, really great Halloween, appropriate for Halloween issue of, that's got to be a Tom Sutton beautiful cover. Yes, I know it's horrific, but it has texture. It's unnerving. It has a little bit of emotion in it. It would actually scare you. I think this cover is ahead of its time. I put it right up there with Italian zombie films of the 70s, if you will, where you actually just looked at the caked and dried oatmeal. There's be rotting flesh on those, and it'd make you want to gag. So this is just a fantastic cover, and I'm pretty sure that's Tom Sutton. Blondie. I actually have a few of these. I love these comic strip books like Hagar the Horrible and things like that. More Flintstones, where he's wearing blue. I don't know what that means. And then I kind of cracked up because I'm a fan of the 90s Flash, the Mark Waid Flash, where I totally got what he was doing with that book. After the grim and gritty 80s and the shadow of Barry Allen over the Flash legacy, and the book sort of like just kind of being there on the stands under Messner Loebs and Greg LaRocque, even though they did some fantastic work on it. Mark Waid came on and started doing this Silver Age feel with the Flash, and he sort of zoomed it in on Wally, and Wally and he brought in the concept of legacy, the Flash legacy, and started pulling a little bit from continuity and bringing in characters we haven't seen since the 40s and things like that, right? 1 or 2 of them and stuff, right? But anyway, Flash annuals. I found these Flash annuals. I already have this, but I believe this is one. I want to say this is the one done by Travis Charest, who would go on to be quite the artist, if you will, even outside of comics and stuff. I remember reading this in my brother, of all people, I think my brother's collection. This is really of a bummer. This is the Elseworlds. They had an annual event where all these stories took place in Elseworlds. They weren't in continuity. And then what I've never read, again, 50 cents a piece, the Dead Earth. Yeah, their Dead Earth event that happened in there, which, these annual events, they came and went. What do we got here? We're about to get to some better stuff, guys. All right. I too read that era of Green Lantern. It's been amazing how Johns revigorated the character and the core of Green Lantern, the core spinoffs from 2000s, the Rebirth, and our exciting science fiction. Jeff Johns on Green Lantern is one of those. It could possibly, off the top of my head, it feels like it's one of the last great runs of a writer with what we've had in the last decade and a half, which I can totally fine with being wrong with. We're just talking off the back of my head. But I feel like The Blackest Night, which I have every book that came out for Blackest Night, Not talking about multiple covers, but I keep a box right up here to where I can pull the Blackest Night event out. And what I've included are the Jeff Johns Green Lantern books that led up to that. When he came back out and stuff, man, I think that was one of the last great crossovers. And what I liked about it is that I always had this thing where I'm like, take all the hokey stuff from continuity of a character. If you killed a character and brought him back, it's been ridiculous and stuff, somehow make it part of the story. And Jeff Johns was able to take a lot of these characters who died and brought them back, and it ended up being the plot of Necron. They ended up becoming, he made it part of the story. That's what I'm saying. Kind of embrace the past and make it cool. And that's what Jeff Johns was doing, in my opinion, and came up with a great story, especially with a touch of pulling from Alan Moore little short stories, from the 80s. Comic Crack. I'm a sucker for 3D books. I am too as well here lately. Yes. Prime One Collector is here. Dave Stevens did an amazing cover in Alien Worlds issue 3, I believe. I may have that. I haven't pulled out those Alien Worlds in forever. No. All right. Talking some Dave Stevens talk. Man, guys, Dave Stevens is the creator of Rocketeer. And when I was mentioning pinup girl art and things like that, he had a touch of that in his work. Let's just put it that way. Underdog. Yes, Crack. Love these hot stuff Underdog. I'm an old Mighty Mouse comic fan. I love those cartoons in the comics. I love the Bakshi Mighty Mouse cartoons from the late 80s. Oh, excuse me, John Cristofalucci and Ralph Bakshi. Yeah. Oh, JLS Comics is here. Good morning. Better than Flintstones? I'll be the judge of that. You should read Flashpoint Beyond. John still has it. Oh, I saw him bring in this new character, Nostalgia, and I just don't know. I don't know, man. Comic Collector, good to see you. Good morning. Okay, so we're moving on here. Let me look around here. So now we'll do some fun comics. Now, these were some of these books I found at an antique store for $1 a piece. And I was with the guy that I'll be mentioning here and there named Josh that I made out of Withville. He'll probably be commenting over weeks and stuff, right? Now, this particular cover, Doom Patrol, I have the full run of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol. I have the run before that Paul Cooperberg was writing. I have been a Doom Patrol fan since I was about 7 or 8. And I still have moments where these characters that I actually fell in love with when I was 7 and 8, even though I've been exposed to them before, but I was, a kid, Anyway, I'm still in disbelief that we have a Black Adam movie and that we have a Doom Patrol TV show. I'm just saying. I'm surprised we had a very well done. There's been several cartoons that Commandy has popped up, but we finally had a solo Commandy short cartoon, attached to one of the straight to DVD cartoon movies, if you will. I think it was Justice Society in World War II or something, right? But this is one of those books that I will buy over and over because of the fantastic Simon Bisley cover of a robot man with the Spider-Man body and stuff, right? Actually, this is one of the first real pictures that I posted that on Instagram that kind of popped. It was a theme month or something. They gave you a prompt every day. I think the prompt was Spider, and this cover just took off or something, right? But I've loved this cover. This is probably the 4th or 5th one. I love Simon Bisley's heavy metal-esque art, if you will. But I just absolutely love that cover. And this completes my Tom Baker run of comics of Doctor Who from Marvel with Dave Gibbons' art. What's a Solitarian? I won't even try it this morning. It's too early. Get my Pac-Man coffee cup. Anyway, but I love how they brought over, I think it was a Marvel premiere, and then Doctor Who got his own titles. Again, it was direct market back then, so I couldn't get these as a kid. But these are strips carried over from Britain, and Dave Gibbons was doing the art in it. And these are fantastic. Now, what's funny is I have a video from years ago of phallic images on comic book covers, and there's no doubt in my mind that Dave Gibbons hid a few phallic images on the covers of these Doctor Who books. And I haven't really took my time to look and see if there's anything strategically placed on this cover. But I got a kick out of it when I was like, am I seeing this? Let me make a video, see if other people see it. And they did indeed. Okay, Thunder Agents, JC Comics. I think this was maybe just 2 issues of this came out. I have no idea if they're reprints or anything, but Wally Wood's Thunder Agents, I've learned to have a great affinity for. I have always been a Wally Wood guy with his art. And I was into his art before I knew who Wally Wood was. It's like his art alone caught my eye, and I never knew it was by the same guy growing up, right? 2 years later, and then I found some one of the most one of the most unknown, in my opinion, one of the least talked about and unknown, but the people who know pencil and ink teams of all time that I wish they had done more work together so people could have seen it, was Jack Kirby, ink by Wally Wood. I'll just leave that there. You can discuss later. I'll go on a tangent. Went ahead and got this Infinity. It was there. It was there. It was cheap. Infinity Crusade, the deluxe edition, I guess, with the chromium cover. It's completing the trilogy of the Infinity Gauntlet by Jim Starlin. I'm like, might as well just go get it. And then some books that I think Frank Bruner has worked on here. Warp Comics. I've never had any of these. I've seen them in other collections. I've passed them up. But like I said, these are from First Comics, and I'm really getting, it seems like every couple of years I get sucked into the alternative comics of the 80s, like I've said before. So these were, buck a piece, and there's a nice little run here. So I want to check them out. Marvel Comics Presents. I'm picking these up with the Sam Keith covers as I run across them. Sam Keith, I'm a huge fan of his art. He's in that school of Arthur Pseudonym and surrealism and a few things. Okay, what we got here? All right, disappointed. Jeff Johns never wrote Legion of Superheroes. He would have brought in many new readers to the title. Any idea why he didn't? He wrote everything else. I have no idea why he didn't, but he did, and I'm sure you're aware of it. I want to tell people out there, Jeff Johns actually, in Action Comics, brought back with Gary Frank the Legion proper. If you go through over the zero, they got the from the Silver Age to about 89. Legion of Superheroes was solid. Those characters slowly grew up. They had a lot of creators, but they got that team. They got that real creative team, the Legion team with Keith Giffen, and Paul Levitz in there, right? And they did some phenomenal stuff in there where I put some of those books from 82, 83, and 84. I would put them side by side going against Titans by Wolfman and Perez and X-Men by Byrne and Claremont, right? So Zero Hour came up. John Byrne came on and took away the whole concept of Superboy, which inspired the Legion. They had to fix that. It was a bit of a mess. Then they had Zero Hour, and then they had several reboots and stuff, right? And then all of a sudden in Action Comics, which blows my mind because it was over 50 years ago, we had a little 3 or 4 part story there where Superman is hanging out with the Legion, and we got our proper Legion back, and they had grown up. And it was the Lightning Saga with Brad Meltzer and stuff. It was crossover in Justice Society, Justice League of America, and then there was a trilogy that led up to, with the third part being Legion of Three Worlds, which was this fantastic miniseries that tied in with Infinity Crisis and stuff. So if you want to know why Gore and I are both kind of sad that he never did the actual Legion title proper, if you read that Lightning Saga trilogy, it's fantastic. And when it comes to the Legion of Three Worlds, it was George Perez art. To me, it's the last high profile book that he had done with Jeff Johns. It's an amazing 5 issues. I've actually given that to people, and it's hooked them on the Legion and made them fans. So Gore, you and I are both in agreement of this, of why did it not happen. Its JSA run was great also. I have all of those. I got those monthly. Doom Patrol, yes. All right, we got some new viewers here that I'm at least commenting. JP Fawn, fantastic. Wally Wood, yes. I guess Sky Masters was the original Space Force. The Sky Masters was a strip that did not get picked up. That was by fantastic by Jack Kirby and Wally Wood, and that is exactly what I was referring to. But I didn't want to go on a tangent because I got to get through these books. Try to stay on track here. Yep, Comic Collector is there. I don't have a complete Action Comics. I'll look for them now. Thanks, Tim. Hold on. Don't want to get off course here. But I'll pull them out for you, Gore. All right. Hardcover collection of Superman, the Legion of Comics. That's from Action Comics. I have a soft cover. And then, but before that, we had the return of them in the Lightning Saga that crossed over with well, I was talking about GSA and the Justice League titles at the time, or Brad Meltzer and Jeff Johns. And then we led up to Final Crisis, right? So they are all collected editions out there. For you guys that don't know, this is sort of my Jeff Johns hardback, Justice Society books and stuff, Virtue and Vice and everything like that. I keep them there so I don't have to dig through the boxes. Getting back to the comics, for $1, we'll go, and then we'll pick up on more comments here. But I'm finding people more and more, right? And I'm not saying that there's a phenomenon going on. That is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they haven't been there to begin with, like their presence hasn't always been there. But the Clive Barker crowd of the Pinhead fans, if you will, Nightbreed of Epic Comics ran for 25 issues back in the day, and they've been picked up by other companies over the years. You had Hellraiser, the magazine comic, if you will, the anthology series, the square-bound prestige format one that I'm not going to pull out behind me and stuff, right? But I'm finding more and more, I'll look over and I'm finding more and more people pulling out those Nightbreed issues. I'm finding someone that's never really checked out the Hellraiser magazine, but we found it, and I've told them, I want to check this out, right? So this is probably, I'm going to guess this is maybe from a series from like about 8 or 9 years ago. I'm not sure about. I'm not going to whip it open. But I heard that there's a movie with a female Pinhead. Well, there's always been a female Pinhead, if you will. So that's why I'm kind of cool with changes like that. They're done in story, or it's already been established. You know what I mean? Not just changing to get an audience. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah, if I find stuff like this for $1, I pick it up. I'm a huge Nightbreed fan. It's just one of those bad B movies that was not supposed to be a bad B movie that just gripped me, and I thought it was fantastic, And as I'm looking, I have my VHS tape of it right over there. Yeah, I had this since 1991, and it still plays. It was, So anyway, enough of that. Now this is a double, right? But for $1, there was 3 issues. I don't know if it was if it's the same storyline, but there was 3 issues of Conan in a row where you had a Todd McFarlane cover, a Jim Lee cover, a Mike Mignola cover. And I know it was for the boost sales and stuff because the series would end probably within 2 or 3 years with Marvel, I think. All right. Anyway, here's that McFarlane cover. This is my second one I found for $1. There are people that are paying price for this, but here was the one that kind of flipped me out for $1. I found the Jim Lee cover. And I got to say, I am impressed. I never thought I would want to see a Conan story by Jim Lee. I want to see a Conan story by Garcia Lopez, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I was at a comic book convention where he was doing a panel, and Lee Weeks was with him. Don't know how those two ended up together on a panel, but he did get asked what character did he want to draw that he never drew. And we find out that he does not enjoy drawing Superman, but he is dying to do a Conan book. And I'm like, make this happen. Darkman, right? This is a second miniseries, not the movie adaptation, but why did I get this? Because Kurt Busiek is writing this, right? I don't know what this is, but it's Enter a Theater of Madness, and I'm assuming this is a new Darkman story, because Darkman is a Sam Raimi hero story, sort of like Phantom of the Opera meets The Shadow or something, right? That came out in, I don't know, 90 or 91. And I'm kind of curious what's going on here because this is not the movie adaptation. So I was trying to grab that. Brian Boland cover of Superman. I'm a sucker for this era. This is right when Crisis was going on or ending, probably ended. So this is probably one of the last pre-Crisis Superman stories. Another Master of Kung Fu, because this is a key. I can't remember who's the first appearance, but for some reason it stuck in my head that I knew this was the first appearance of some villain or something. No idea how I knew that. And then I'm backing up and I'm getting the Total Chaos. Back when Valiant comics were taking off and Image comics were taking off, Marv Wolfman, who I talked to at a comic book convention in 2013, did admit that he stayed on the Titans books for too long. But we started getting spin-offs, and they had a story going through all the books that Marv Wolfman was under his umbrella, if you will. And at the time, it was Deathstroke and Teen Titans, leading up to Teen Titans. But these have fantastic Mike Zeck covers, and they crossed over with the Titans and stuff, and it was Total Chaos is what it was called. And over the years, I got rid of them. So I think I need number 14 and 15 just to have these Total Chaos books again. I actually got rid of them. They didn't really grab me. Now I have a better appreciation for them. I have a Earth X. I was there from the beginning, buying that book monthly and stuff, right? And I cracked up because I found this for $1. People, this popped because it's the first female appearance of Thor as a female and stuff, right? You have to read the story. It's actually a curse by Loki, which it's not the same thing, guys. And then I cracked up. This was an impulse buy, but like, how could I not? Toxic Avenger, 4 and 5 of these books. I passed up number 1 for years. So when that book popped, it cracked me up. It did. So when I saw these, I was like, I got to check out this comic. This is hilarious, right? This was also during an era of Marvel that I really enjoyed because they were coming out with the Destroyer adaptations in magazine form, and then a one-shot in a comic, and then a 4-issue miniseries with Walt Simonson art. They had Freddy Krueger magazine coming out that only lasted a couple issues. I don't know what was going on, but it was like, it really was sort of an awkward, exciting time at Marvel. You had all these number 1 issues coming up, like Guardians of the Galaxy, Quasar, the John Byrne She-Hulk book. It was RoboCop. They had a RoboCop book come out, number 1, which I passed up yesterday. I never realized how going into the 90s, Marvel had like a little bit of a weird feel going on. All right, let's check this out. Graphic Man is here. Good morning. Yeah, good morning, Graphic Man. Check out Graphic Man, his channel with his Fossil show on Wednesday night. Prime Collector 1, Gary Frank's artwork is amazing in those issues. That guy has just got... I hate that Doomsday Clock fell flat because you could tell Gary Frank... I could just look at Gary Frank's art in that book and not read any words. Gary Frank is just... his attention to detail. I didn't realize I had been following his career over the years. He just ended up on books that I was interested in, and I've actually seen his evolution. New film on Hulu was great. I'm assuming you're talking about the Hellraiser one. Great. Boom Studios Hellraiser was good. It's fantastic. I really like hearing stories about creators being normal. Hey, Dr. Silver Age, good morning. I just showed some Charlton comics from the 70s. Shadow Slasher first appearance of Master Kung Fu. Thank you. I knew it was a key, and I cannot tell you how I knew. I have no idea how I knew. It just clicked when I saw it. I don't know. Traumaville, yes. I watched quite a bit of Traumaville. I have Toxic Avenger on the VHS, the original one that I've carried around since then. Class of Nukem High, and some other ones. So I started thinking. Sumerian, good morning. Back then they were trying everything in those early 90s. So much fun it was. Yeah, if we only knew what we had, Okay, so now we're getting into some better stuff, guys, I think. Let me make sure here. We got 2 little stacks to go. This should be the better stuff, right? I want to save the other stack. So I told you that I ended up, after decades, it was a bit of a reunion where my brother and I were hunting for comics together and looking for comics together and stuff, right? Which was amazing, right? And he took me to one of his honeypots. He shared a honeypot with me, right? I never would have known was there. I even drove by the place several times for you guys that are just popping into the show, right? So I found a few things. Number 41. Okay. I'm an Avengers guy, Kurt Busiek guy back in the 90s, George Perez guy. So when, what is this, volume 3, I think, of the Avengers started up, it was Kurt Busiek and George Perez. That's a no brainer. So I followed the book for quite a while, and then the book sort of like started dipping out of the stands. And around when this book came out, I think if it's 98, that's not right. No. This is 2000, 2001. Anyway, the book started dipping out on the shelves, and I found had a little bit rougher time trying to find them, if you will, right? And I think it was around this time or a year later, somewhere within a year of this book, that I started ordering. I caught up with the internet. I entered the 21st century a few months too late, started ordering my books online. And the Avengers were still kicking strong with Kurt Busiek. Alan Davis had been doing work on them. I'll show a book here in a minute. And, he was about to finish out. And I ended up picking back up when Jeff Johns actually came on the Avengers. All right. So I missed a lot of this stuff. And who knew that for some reason this is considered one of those hard to find key books? This is going for $20 and up on eBay. And I paid $4 or $5 for it, I think. $5, right? I don't usually pay that much. If you guys have watched this channel any at all over the last 11 years, me buying a book for $5 like this, would make some jaws drop for you, guys, right? There's another Avengers in here somewhere, some other things. It'll pop up. Yeah, here it is. Issue 36. Now, I had to get this one because it has a poster in it by Alan Davis, and I'm a sucker for those books that come out with posters inside and they're complete. So the Alan Davis cover on top of Alan Davis doing, did he do the cover? Steve Epstein's on this. Anyway, the fact that we have an Alan Davis cover. Well, what's funny is I have a Legionnaires book, Legionnaires or Legion of Superheroes book that also has an Alan Davis poster in it, right? So just let you know, look out for those things. Now, here's a book I flipped through. It is not at all what I thought it was, but it was great to finally get a hold of these. But we talk about Cerebus reaching 300 as an indie book. We talk about Spawn reaching 300 as a indie book or whatever, right? And then, which I kind of don't agree with, but it's great that it made it to 300. I think it is significant when a book reaches 300, whether it be with DC or Marvel or not, but the merits should be considered much higher when it's a book not backed up by a corporation. Okay, you follow me? So anyway, but this was a book that was really confusing me because I think it's broke 300. You don't hear anything about it. I've never read one of these. I remember seeing them around. And then when I got it, it's not what I thought it was going to be. It's more of a magazine because it also has articles in it and strips, but it's had the same characters and stuff, right? And I know Crack, probably Comic Crack, if he's still watching, is probably going to be right on top of this, right? But I finally got a few issues of Knights of the Dinner Table, right? This started in the 90s, or probably right at 1990 as a strip in another book or something. I don't know. They actually give you the history in a little blurb of this book, right? But as you can see, it's basically Knights of the Dinner Table, play on King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table. If you really, to not be able to put that together, have to really, be on some major drugs or something, right? But anyway, basically it's people playing, there's people that are role playing, and I've done the RPGs, 5 years of D&D, I don't know, 4 years of White Wolf games back in the day, and then the sort of stuff in between sprinkled afterwards and stuff. It's always been a little bit of a thing, right? But basically they take these characters, and these characters are archetypes of the type of characters people who play games, like the hack and slash people, the people who get bored when you're doing the story setup and the talking and the haggling in character, if you will, during a campaign, who just want to we're just going to cut the shit out of it. That's how you solve everything. And it goes on from there, right? So basically, apparently, I'm assuming I had to get this Doctor Who themed one. I had to get this Death Dealer book. And this was what was great about being with my brother. He said, if I didn't get this, I would get this. He would get this because of the Frazetta inspired Death Dealer cover, which is hilarious because it's one of the characters with his gamers' heads, his fellow RPG players' heads in a net. And then I got the 200th issue. And this is what made me think about this. Has this thing reached issue 300? And I think it has. And it doesn't seem to be celebrated. So I got in there, and it's black and white strips of them sitting around the table talking and stuff is what I've seen, which I'm sure is entertaining. And then it seems to have articles about RPG playing and stuff like that. So it actually expands. It's actually a magazine with a few more things to read inside of it. But I've been curious for decades. But you really don't hear about it being celebrated for breaking that magical 300 number, right? Um, what we got here? Let's check out the comments. Hey, Sumerian is here. Good to see you. Okay, now we're into what I consider the cream of the crop stuff. So if you've come in late and made it to this far, good for you. If you started from the beginning with me and made it this far, maybe this will be a little bit of a payoff, maybe not, don't know. But for me, I feel really good about what I found and what's going on. Now, like I said, we made it to Mountain Empire Comic Books, 38th anniversary. You could have shown up with a table and set up and sold your books for free. They had cut off State Street in Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee for Halloween. We didn't really go out there to see what was going on, but down the alley, we could see people walking up and down the street that they'd closed off. You know, some people were dressed up and stuff, right? But he had pretty much what he had was a 30% off sale on everything in the store. If you got to the new books on the wall, the newer books that probably came out 2 to 3 months over the last 2 to 3 months and stuff, if you bought 30 of them, they dropped to $1 a piece. So it's $30 for 30 new books. Anything you bought after that would also be $1, right? Now, I was in that store, Mountain Empire Comics. I just took off from work. I had some equal time to take off, needed a break, ended up taking off to Bristol, which is about an hour drive. Went in there, and he had bought a new collection off of a guy whose brother had passed away, and had some really eclectic, great stuff in it, right? I probably shot a video showing the stuff I got, but some of the things I found in the boxes that I took up to the guy that owns the shop was 2 of these. And I didn't pressure him to try to get him to sell them to me because I knew he needed to look it up. I didn't really know anything about it, right? But I have a story with it, right? So for $17 after a discount, I got a hardback first print of 1989 Grant Morrison Arkansas, before Grant Morrison was a superstar with Dave McKean art, before Dave McKean in comic book circles was getting noticed and credited and stuff like that, for basically mostly for his covers like on Sandman and some Vertigo books and stuff, right? So yeah, $17 for a first print. Now, the person who passed away, and this was his collection, what was cool about it is he had 2 of them. And I have a feeling when you open this, I started opening it and I closed it immediately and put it back because it still cracks like a new book. It still smells like a brand new book. This is before trades were a thing. Now, this isn't a trade. This was a hardback book that came out that you would buy for this original story. This is not reprints or anything, right? And the fact that it's the first edition blows my mind. Well, he just put them up for $25. Now, like I said, I'm suspecting that the guy had bought this off the rack with the comic book collection I saw that he had and everything like that. And he had one that he read and one that he didn't. And I think I got the one that he didn't because my brother bought the other one. I thought it was so cool that I found these 2 books. And then when we come back 2 weeks later, I'm with my brother and we ended up each buying one. That just blew my mind. That was actually cool to me, right? So anyway, there we go. First print, first edition, hardback book. This is back when this was new and special and stuff, before you saw these left and right. So that was very cool to find. If you guys that don't know, Arkham Asylum was a take where Grant Morrison wrote a story where the inmates have taken over the asylum, and he's writing a warped version with Dave McKean art of Batman entering Wonderland, if you will. He turned the asylum and all the Batman villains that are there into a version of Wonderland, and with Batman being Alice and stuff. So there you go. All right, Crack got that as well. That is fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. Now, this is not the original, okay? This is the reprint that came out in 1990 of this 1986. And I'm going to tell you the significance of both these books for you guys that have done it for a while. Anyway, but I got a Marvel graphic novel. This is Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz doing Love and War in 86, right? And for you guys that were there, Frank Miller came up on Daredevil, became sort of a superstar, and it kept the fan following. Meanwhile, at the same time, you have Bill Sienkiewicz, who started drawing out comics with the style of a Neil Adams-esque sort of style, if you will, getting on books like Moon Knight and stuff, and developing his style, revealing it to us, where he gets like this, from Neil Adams to this, to where he comes on to New Mutants and put that book through the roof with his art. Well, they're teaming up to do a little Daredevil here after playing around with Elektra and Elektra Assassin and stuff like that. So throughout the 80s, Frank Miller brought the ninjas into comics, and the idea of Frank Miller coming back and forth to Daredevil was just like a hot property. Frank Miller, this is this is Frank Miller's '80s era where he is the superstar. It's all him and Alan Moore and stuff there for a while and stuff, and anybody attached them as artists and stuff, right? But this is infamous, and I'm hoping this is the right story I'm thinking of. But this is infamous where people kind of got a little detracted with the story because Bill Sienkiewicz just kept drawing Kingpin fatter and fatter and fatter to the point that his whole head and shoulders and body would take up a panel and you'd have this tiny little Kingpin face. That's what I heard about it, right? I mean, what a great era. So as I'm sitting here talking to you, man, you got stuff like that. You got artists being artists and creativity going on and things going on in comics like that. And at the same times on the alternative scenes, you had like Grendel coming on the rise and Mage and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles going on and Dark Knight. Just great. Such a great era, man. I really get hyped talking about this stuff. All right. Arkham Asylum was one of my favorite graphic novels when Burton's Batman film was released. Of course, yes, 1989. Yeah, was released. I was disappointed it wasn't like it. I imagine Ridley Scott directing it. I was really cool with the Batman movie. I'll talk about that at some other point. That's a good topic, I think. But a Ridley Scott Batman would have been fantastic. I don't want to dismiss that. That was just fantastic. Oh, thanks, Crack. Yeah, I got a few other books here going here. The Sumerian, really cool. You said you watched. You said your Watchmen graphic novel felt special because it was something not sold off a rack and was a super special to you. Arkham Asylum is the same for me. Absolutely. Now, the significance of both those books, Daredevil, as I'm going through the comments here, let me get through this and I'll explain. I read in Comics Journal how Warner DC tempered Batman comic book coverage before film release. They wanted film stories, but not about the comics. They even threatened legal action. Oh my gosh. I have to check that out. Now, the significance of these books. Now, here's what's weird. Now, realize I'm not saying this is the trilogy of the 80s or anything, right? But art class was pretty big to me in high school, right? I'm one of those people that I didn't like high school. I was counting down in my house in high school. I was counting down to when I was 18, like it was a prison sentence that was going to end. I'm just going to put it out there, right? But art class was different. Really became involved with the art class to the point that the way my high school schedule worked was when I was a senior, it would have been art 4 after 4 years of art classes. But I ended up being in the art 1 class doing my art 4 projects. And what I didn't realize is my art teacher had me teaching the art 1 people. Right. I mean, I didn't realize it was smooth. I was young, naive, and she was smooth. Right. So I ended up teaching, the art 1 class. Right. So it's high school stuff. So don't think I was, teaching some Michelangelos. Right. But what happened was over the course around my senior year, I ended up hanging out with some of these guys. Don't get me wrong, but the older kids that were coming through in some of those classes, they were coming in with books like The Watchmen Trade before I got it. They were walking in with Arkham Asylum. They were walking in with this. And these were fair weather comic book collectors. You know what I'm saying? Like I could have talked circle, and I ended up doing it later on. I'm trying to keep names from happening because some of these people still live around here. And I don't want them to think that I'm just looking down on them because of their comic knowledge, but these were fair weather collectors. You know what I mean? Like, and it kind of blew my mind that these older kids, just because they were a year or two older than me and had access to a car, could go out and get the stuff that I should be reading. I'm the comic book guy, damn it. I've been doing this since I was a kid. Yeah, 15-year-old kid. Of course, I'm going to talk like that. And as I'm sitting here saying it, I didn't realize I was feeling the jealousy, but I can totally own it now. I didn't think it was jealous. I just kind of felt like these guys, they don't know comics. What are they doing getting this good stuff and stuff, right? And so, yeah, it's maturity is good, guys. Maturity is good, and forgive yourself for those feelings you have when you're a teenager, and those terrible things that you have. Okay, and now, when it comes to it, I just did a video last week because I'm reorganizing my room and I had all of it out, but now I have something else to add to it. But I did my complete Watchmen collection. Right. Well, I found this from 1986 or 87 called Watch Cats. And it's a little indie book, little alternative book parodying Watchmen. Right. And it's not very well done, but I totally get this. To me, this reminds me of like, this is what I love about kids when it comes to drawing or deciding they want to try to draw comic books. Kids just sit down and do it. And that's what this feels like. There's an energy in this that's very youthful. And that's what I think is going to make this interesting for me to try to read. But as you can see, it starts out where they're playing with the idea of uh, Dave Gibbons panning out, to where they pan out. They start with the badge, like in Watchmen, and they pan all the way out to the earth, and they say, "Dave Gibbons, eat your heart out." So little unintentional meta there and stuff, right? So we have a new parody of Watchmen for me to read. Watchcat's got to get that in a bag. My brother actually bought this for me. I put it back because I have one, and it's, of course, this is 30% off. My brother snuck. I bought my stuff and then went out to the car, and my brother was paying for his stuff, and he snuck back and got this for me after I put it back. But it's Miracleman Apocrypha #1, and it's an upgrade from the one I have. So now I want to whip out that other one and have it be my reader copy. And then I had to get these, and they were 30% off. But I actually had to get these. These are beautiful copies of Eclipse Comics Miracleman #20 and 22, the gaming issues. And these are beautiful. I can't remember what I paid. They were $16 a piece, take off 30%. And then he shaved off a little bit more after this big stack that I bought here, right? So I have no idea what I paid for these. But I couldn't pass them up because of the phenomenal shape they're in. All these Miracle Men smell, look brand new. If I was going to get something graded, I would probably send these in because they look that well. Crack, I always refer to Crack now when I bring up these oddball comics and stuff, right? But I ended up getting this. This is from 1990. I feel like I actually had a fantastic conversation with Rob, who owns the comic book shop, and somebody else that was in there. We had a really fantastic story with Concrete, about Concrete back in the day by Paul Chadwick from Dark Horse. And it was all because I had the first appearance of the Mask in Dark Horse Presents #10 that I was buying off of him for like $1 or $2, right? But anyway, and it had a Concrete story or something. We were talking about Dark Horse Presents, and we got the Concrete. We had a fantastic story, and it turns out some of the early Concrete stories that I read, according to them, who had read all the Concrete stuff, I got to read the cherry picked great stuff, right? The pinnacle Concrete. So now we have Concrete Odd Jobs from 1990. Pretty thick. I'm actually going to be reading this after the show. I've got to see what this thing. It's like Grendel. I got to see what Concrete has that's made people stay fans. And I'm trying to pick up on what people have fell in love with Grendel. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know, but I'm more. I want to know what is the zeitgeist that has grabbed you for these books. All right, same feeling for me about High School Teen. Forget the John Hughes film, pure fantasy. It was more like Heathers. Yeah. Wow. Comic Crack said, wow. Okay. Hi, I'm good with being associated with the Oddball Comics. Concrete is great. What little I've read. Comic Crack, I hope you're not saying wow to my jealous feelings as a 15-year-old. I've matured since then. I'll just say that. Don't judge me, man. Don't judge me. I was a kid. I'm good with being associated with the Oddball Comics. Concrete is great. What little I've read. I think it's a badge of honor, Crack. I really do. I think it's a badge of honor that's being thought of when it comes to weird comics has served me well here at the local comic book cons. That's what I'm getting at. People will pull out stuff and invite you to check out stuff when they think they know your niche and stuff, right? And I'm well aware you're more knowledgeable than just Oddball Comics and stuff, Okay, so okay, we're gonna throw these two out real quick, and then we'll get some better stuff here, right? But I had to get this. This is a Young All Stars annual that crosses over with the Infinity Comics annual that mirrors the books. Actually go together, and you have the Young All Stars team looking at Mechanique, who is inspired by the robot from Metropolis. I can't believe I'm going blank on her name. Metropolis is, of course, the Fritz Lang sci-fi silent movie. That's the first time I discovered it was in a Queen video, and I had to figure out where they were getting these clips from and what were they inspired by. Anyway, it goes with an Infinity Incorporated annual that I have that mirrors this. You'll have Per Degaton standing there looking at the heroes. It's the Heroes Infinity Incorporated. Had to get that. And then I'm getting this, right? When I was going through my Watchmen video I did last week, my complete Watchmen collection, not only is this Who's Who's update from 1988, 87, says it right there, is it not only is it an early McFarlane artwork, even though he'd been in comics for about 4 years at this time, but this has the Minutemen in it. A Minutemen drawn by Dave Gibbons, the history of the Minutemen. You know what I'm saying? I just saw it and I'm like, well, I'll get that also, right? Got this for a great price, 30% off. Number 35, Dark Horse Presents, one of the earlier Dark Horse started to really get noticed for their licensed property, right? When they got the Aliens and the Predator books, everybody wanted that. Everybody wanted to see that fight and stuff. So I picked these up when I run across them and stuff, right? And then we had a short conversation when I got this. This is issue 4 and 5 of 135. I've been wanting to read this. I have been told I need to read this. I have been warned about reading this, right? And I also follow Rick Veitch on Facebook and stuff, and he'll post art and stuff, right? But from what I understand, I'm thinking this happened around the time that I think this was a reaction, right? I could be totally wrong. I need to do my research. This could be a reaction to what happened at DC. But of course, he had taken over the reins of Swamp Thing from Alan Moore after a few things. And he had this fantastic story going on where Swamp Thing was time traveling, and he was going to end up having Swamp Thing tied to the wood cross and maybe meeting Jesus, I guess, right? DC, like, no, took him off the book. Said no to that storyline, right? So all of a sudden, this book comes out called Brat Pack about the sidekicks and stuff, right? And it's supposed to be a reactionary tale, as we come to find out, of his bitterness towards the industry at the time. That's what I've been warned about, right? So it's one of those books where I talk about the 3 ways you can read a novel, read a pulp, read a comic book, read anything. You can read the work just for it standing on its own. You can read the work for what's going on with the author, and you can read the work for what's going on at that period in the world through history, right? So this sounds like it's one of those books you need to realize what was going on with the creator at the time, if I've been told right? But anyway, it's Brat Packs. I remember seeing the advertisement for this where you saw a leg with a robin booty on the foot on a sink or something, and he's shaving the leg. You know what I mean? Like, it says hairy leg with one clean stripe with the, and I think it had like a little bit of skin in it, like he'd cut himself, right? Very brutal. So I got Brat Pack 4 and 5. These seem to be black and white, and I'm totally going to be checking these out. Might be the second thing I read after that Concrete, just because I've been curious all these years, right? And we'll just finish up with what I got here. I didn't realize these were on the bottom of the stack, right? But I was talking about the 90s comics. X-Files seems to be a book that's better than I gave it credit for at the time, but I didn't really read a lot. I was like, how much could they do with it? Because they can't do what could the stakes be in the comic, because they have to keep the TV show going. You know what I mean? But then there's this book that I don't understand why I didn't get it. This should have been in my wheelhouse to begin with. This should have been it. I got a sampling of it back then, right? But it's this book I've been harking on for about a year now. Like I've rediscovered it, but I mean, I'm just really digging it. Sandman Mystery Theater. I now think I'm close to having all 70 issues in the annual. I want to say I need 15 issues, which is quite an accomplishment, I guess, when I really haven't set out to find these issues and stuff, right? But this was through Vertigo, around 70 issues, but and I ended up double dipping. So I have a feeling that I put a book back that I needed and accidentally kept this one, but this, I double dipped, right? But this is just a fantastic pulpy feeling comic set in the 30s. Takes on cults, takes on killers. Just a fantastic book. I mean, if you like Shadow and things like that, these are the ones to get. I don't think they're just showing up, and they got really intricate with their covers, using actual photos and a cosplay feel, but just got better and better. I mean, this book really had a unique identity at the time, just from, like I said, the covers and the Guy Davis art and the retro 30s feel. You're not watching a Clark Gable movie, people, when you read these. I'll tell you that. Tell you what, there's sex and everything going on in them. Not that delayed effing stuff that they have. Okay. I gotta get those put up. I've already filed them in my apps. So we'll do this. Hey, I was saying wow to those Miracleman comics you found. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I see that gaming issues around here, and very few times I see an issue. They are very pricey. Uh, I got the trade to where I've read quite a bit of the Neil Gaiman stuff, and I really don't think I would recommend it to people. Um, I would recommend it to people who are into the craft and artwork more than the structure of a story, because Neil Gaiman is definitely experimenting and letting the artists experiment with those books. They're more, to me, they're more, he's world building, showing how the world has changed with Miracleman, but it's a piece of art. It's really, it's an those things are pieces of art to be enjoyed and interpreted, and it's not a straightforward periodical sequential story going on. You know what I mean? A lot of symbolism going on, a lot of artwork that the artist is being an artist and stuff, right? I mean, it's like if Andy Warhol, and Andy Warhol is in the story, let's put it that way, in one of the books. It's, yeah, art pieces. This is going to be a really tough gap to fill in my Eclipse comic collection. That's going to be a really tough gap to fill in my Eclipse comic collection. Yeah, especially now. Rat Pack is so good. I love Veitch. All right, maybe I'll get my sampling. It will go well. Maxi Mortal is also worth grabbing if you haven't read it. I think he's selling that or a sequel to it or something on Amazon right now. You mentioned White Wolf often. Since you're not on the road and getting too many hauls, have you ever been done a bit on Wraith, Werewolf, and other White Wolf stuff? You used to have your old books. That's why I haven't done it. I actually stupidly sold those books due to space issues. That's what kills me. I wasn't hurting for money at the time. It wasn't anything. I just knew that all the people that I played White Wolf games were out of it. And actually, I was probably into my my 30s and stuff, and probably getting those feelings like I'm not going to be playing that and all that stuff. I'm getting too old and stuff. So I stupidly sold all my books except for one. I got a Formori book. For you guys that play White Wolf, that's a whole different class of monster you can play. But I kept the Formori book if you're into that, how to create it. Some of the campaigns that I wrote my own campaigns and played them with people. When I get hold of these books, but I've got Rage Against the Appalachia, because it has actual history for where I live and stuff like that. The White Wolf games were fantastic because they were historically accurate as much as they could. They pulled from real life. They pulled from movies. Everything they pulled from was accurate. They had a fantastic research team or whatever, however they did this. It's some fantastic stuff in it. So yeah, I've got 3 or 4 books floating around, but I don't have the actual handbooks and things like that. I already read that one. But if I had the books, I would definitely be doing showing some of that off. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I can think of something. Yes, fantastic. I'm late. Which comics app do you log your comics on? I use the CLZ app for Android. You got to be careful. If you don't have it, you can order one just for your computer. You can you subscribe to it. You subscribe. I pay a fee once a year, which is fine with me. It's not that much, but and they offer discounts through the year where it renews itself with a discount sometimes, right? But anyway, but when you subscribe, you need to read the details, because you can subscribe to the one that works on your computer, or subscribe to the one that works on your phone, or somehow subscribe to one that's a little bit more that works on both. But I use the one just from my phone for convenience. All right, Ranger Eli. What's this? Yeah, Ranger Slies here. Good morning. Tim Merritt had a huge concrete. Tim Merritt, that's a guy who used to have a channel, and I have him on Facebook, so he's still alive. Tim Merritt was a huge concrete fan, like Cerebus, unfortunately. It will never reach a wide audience, although, to be fair, concrete is more accessible. Yeah, again, Gore, I completely agree. Thanks to it being tagged to Dark Horse, much more accessible. Yeah. And boy, Maxi Mortal is the series that he is currently doing. I haven't read that yet. Right, that's what he advertises a lot on his Facebook. Is that the boy Maxi Mortal? I knew something was going on. All right, guys, that's it. I got things to do today. It was a pleasure, and my honor, and solely my honor, to spend this time with you guys this morning. So share the video, thumbs it up, definitely thumbs it up. This was actually, I think, at the end there, this was a great haul. And I just really enjoyed the show, and I enjoyed hanging out with my brother collecting comics. I haven't done that since like, probably like 90 or 91. That's what I'm saying here, right? I'm sure we probably ran into somewhere at least 2 or 3 times that I'm not remembering, but really a magical day, man. Just a magical day. So you guys be excellent to each other, and hey, carry on, man. Good to see y'all. Enjoy your Halloween. Happy Halloween.